Welcome to another Kanopy Conversation. In this episode, we're excited to speak with writer-director Chandler Levack, whose directorial debut, I Like Movies, is now on Kanopy. Chandler, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you. I love Kanopy. That's where I watch all my, Sundance Indies and Criterion movies.
Oh, we love it. We'd love to hear it. To start, I think our viewers would love to hear about the plot of I Like Movies. As the filmmaker, how would you sum up the story?
Yeah, well, I think I Like Movies is about a very pretentious teenage cinephile named Lawrence, and he gets a job at a kind of corporate video store in his final year of high school, where he develops a very complicated relationship with his older female manager at the store.
Our viewers, especially those that like movies, enjoy hearing behind the scenes perspectives from those responsible for the production. Can you give us a sense of the origin of I Like Movies from screenplay through final film edit?
Yeah. Well, it's I Like Movies is very heavily based on my own experiences. I worked at Blockbuster in high school. I was probably a little bit pretentious, and really obsessed with cinema. So I think I put a lot of my own high school experiences into the film. Um, the video store recreating kind of a 2003 era video store was really important to me. You could say that like sequels, which is kind of the Blockbuster-esque video store that Lawrence works at, is like another character of the movie. So it was a really interesting challenge of like, the film was shot on a micro budget. We filmed it during the pandemic. I was like, how are we going to create this video store? Our budget for the video store is like maybe, I don't know, $2,000, $3,000. It was really crazy. So I started, someone told me about this abandoned Blockbuster that had been sitting vacant in Owen Sound, which is kind of about 2 hours away from Toronto. And they were like, you should check it out. I mean, it's just like been sitting there for like 5 years. The windows are all boarded up, but like maybe you could shoot there. I don't know. So I found out who the property manager was. He agreed to meet me there. And when he opened the door, it was like this crazy time capsule. Like it hadn't ever been cleaned out, and since it had gone out of business, and like all the shelving was still there, the whole front counter, the little cart where you like push the DVDs, like the staff room, like it was really uncanny to like walk into a place that was exactly like I remembered working there. But we couldn't actually shoot there because it was too far away and we would have had to like move our whole production there. So um I made this like handshake deal with the property manager where I literally met him in like a dark alleyway at night and handed him like an envelope full of cash. And then he handed me the keys to the video store and he was like, this never happened. And I took like a cube truck there with my production designer and some crew, and we just literally like ransacked the entire store and took all of the things from it. And then that became like our set design for the movie.
That's amazing. And we're going to touch on specifically the nostalgia factor with the video store a little bit later. As someone of a certain generation, that definitely hit home for me, and would certainly love to elaborate and talk a little bit further about that. Uh, as a Canadian filmmaker, it must have been a great honor to premiere I Like Movies at the Toronto International Film Festival. Can you tell us about the process of submitting your film and how you ultimately found out it was accepted? And how did the experience compare for a feature film versus your short film, We Forgot to Break Up, that screened at the fest in 2017?
Right. I mean, it was a great honor. TIFF is as a Torontonian, I've loved TIFF and I've been going there since I was 19 years old. So I think it was like my 17th TIFF, and it was really exciting and such an honor to be able to show my film there. I couldn't believe it. Um, but yeah, I mean, we submitted to a lot of film festivals before we got into TIFF, which I think uh filmmakers should prepare themselves for. I think just finishing the movie was like an accomplishment in and of itself, like getting through the post process. And there's so many hurdles when you're making like truly independent cinema. So to even walk away with like a finished, color, sound design, all the VFX are in place, like movie was like there was certainly a point where I was like, I don't even know if I'm ever gonna finish this movie, let alone premiere it at a film festival. Um, but yeah, I just having a feature is totally different, and I think we had a really charmed experience at the festival. Like for whatever reason, this like tiny indie movie like really struck a chord with people. Maybe it was
Mhm.
the title. But it was really exciting TIFF. Like we had 3 screenings of the movie and they all sold out within the first 30 seconds of the festival being like announced. People kept doing double bills of my film and the Fablemans. It was like, yeah, it was really magical. I mean, having shorts is great too, and I think shorts are like an incredible path for any filmmaker and really a necessary, exciting part of the process. And I think my favorite part of anything ultimately is just getting to meet other filmmakers and see work that really inspires me. So certainly when I had my short film play there too, it was tremendously exciting as well.
With I Like Movies, did you have a moment either on the red carpet or like after a Q&A at the festival where you're like, wow, I've made it. This is the moment. This is my feature. I've been working on this for forever. It's, it takes I know it takes a village to get a film, especially a feature film, made and ultimately released. Did you have a moment like that where you were able to basically just enjoy the experience for a moment?
Oh, I think I'm way too neurotic for that. Like little with anxiety. So even if I, could find myself into a moment, I certainly would pull myself out with my own tremendous anxiety. But, it was really gratifying. And I think for me, the really exciting thing was just getting to celebrate like everyone who worked on it, and Isaiah, who's the lead who plays Lawrence, like he also got to have this like really wonderful kind of like coming out party,
Yeah.
because I think it was such a great starring vehicle for him. And I think he became like a TIFF Rising Star that year, and he got to go to all these like red carpets events and stuff. So I was just really like excited to see Isaiah shine because I think he's the best.
And the film was also named one of the top 10 Canadian films of the year at the festival, correct?
Hmm.
Yeah. Again, I've got to imagine that's an incredible honor. And I hope at some point you have that moment where you can sit back and enjoy the success you've had. Uh, Okay, as the title implies, I Like Movies focuses on a central character, Lawrence, who works in a video rental store and is obsessed with movies. I'd love to talk for a moment about your choice to set the coming of age story in the early 2000s within a video store. As someone who vividly remembers video stores of that era and roaming the aisles looking for a VHS or DVD to bring home to view, can you tell us how you came to select a video store as the backdrop?
Yeah, well, the film, um, in Canada, we have this thing called Talent to Watch, which is a grant for first time features. And at the time, they would give you $125,000 to make your first feature. And, I was in my mid 30s and I kind of felt like my biological clock was ticking, but only to make a movie, I guess. It just felt like this very primal thing. Like I was born to like give birth to a coming of age movie, and I have to make a movie or I'm gonna die. And it was really hard to get like a bigger project finance. So my friends were recommending this program and I was like, okay, like these are the parameters. Like try to think of an idea that you could execute for that amount of money. And so I was kind of trying to think of something that was like a bit contained, like more feeling like a play or something. I really love Annie Baker's work, and The Flick is like one of my favorite pieces of art of all time. So I was kind of like thinking like, could I make The Flick but for a movie? And then I started thinking about my last year of high school when I was working at Blockbuster, and sort of this time of your life where everything's about to change, but you're still in high school and you don't know what your future is going to be, and you're working your first kind of job and actually developing these connections with like real adults for the first time, and how strange that is, that kind of gulf between thinking you're so clear about your future, you know exactly everything that's going to happen, but you actually have absolutely no control at all, and you kind of have to just accept that things are about to change forever, permanently. And I was like, oh, that could be an interesting backdrop to like an indie movie. And so yeah, I was like, okay, and then the world of the video store was just really appealing to me. Like I'm a tremendously nostalgic person. I love physical media. And I think I selfishly just like wanted to be in Blockbuster again. I wanted to be like pushing that cart around on the carpet and stocking the shelves with DVDs, and I miss like tactile media. Um and then I went to high school. I think I graduated in 2004. So I kind of always knew it was going to be exactly when my high school experience was. And it wouldn't have made sense to do it any later or earlier because I wouldn't have had the context. And also, like, video stores kind of collapsed a bit around the just a few years later.
You've got a wonderful line in where a corporate representative from the video store says, "Oh, you've got such a future." Talking to Lawrence, you have such a future in this industry. You know, I could see you being a corporate video store employee for whatever 30 or 40
Next
years.
30 40 years.
Yeah, I love it. Again, all the film fans will, especially those of us who remember video stores, it's such a cute moment in the film, and definitely alludes to where we now are with the streaming wars and the lack of physical media and the lack of access to films. I think it's a lot harder to find things, which is kind of confusing given that in a digital era we were promised, like, access to all movies where
Yeah,
I could find those niche obscure films at a video store, but a lot of those are no longer in circulation, so it's tough to find a lot of those.
for sure.
So much of your film is autobiographical, as you've discussed. Can you talk about your decision to make the lead a teenage boy, and if there were any reasons why you opted to go in that direction to have Lawrence as your lead?
Yeah, um I think for me it was like a few reasons. Like, firstly, if it was if it was the main character was a girl, the Ladybird comparisons would never end. Um Also, I was kind of interested in this idea of, like, toxic film bros, and are they born
Mhm.
or are they made? And I know so many adult Lawrences that maybe never quite learned the lesson that this movie is trying to impart, which is sort of, you know, connect with people, don't just talk about movies all the time, ask people questions about themselves, like, get interested in other people. And maybe that's actually the path to being a great filmmaker and a great artist, is like your curiosity about the world and other people instead of just like your own maniacal vision of what you think it should be. Um so yeah, I think for me it was just like more interesting to kind of talk about that. I think female filmmakers often are kind of, there's a stigma that we can only tell stories about other women. There's not a lot of films that are about women that are made by or sorry, there's not a lot of films about men that are made by women, maybe from a different angle than they can see themselves. And yeah, and also I think fundamentally it was kind of I think with that kind of veil on it, I could actually be more true and more autobiographical because there wasn't like the terrifying pressure of like having to recreate something with a person who was supposed to embody me exactly. He could
Right.
kind of be an avatar for some things that I was like in high school, but I didn't have to like physically look at someone who looked exactly like me. In my second feature that I just shot about a month ago in Montreal, the main character is a young woman, and is played by Barbie Ferrer from Euphoria, and that was something that was like really hard for me to actually get to direct because she was wearing my clothes from when I was in my early 20s, and looked a lot like me, and in a lot of ways it was like, oh yeah, I understand why this is actually very, very hard. Like, I'm grateful that my first experience wasn't exactly replicating that because it's very uncanny.
I like movies references several films from Kubrick's Full Metal Jacket to Paul Thomas Anderson's Punch Drunk Love. Many of the films mentioned were and remain focal points of film history. How did you choose the titles and filmmakers that Lawrence obsessed over?
They're all films that I was obsessed with in high school. So
Okay.
I was completely obsessed with the entire Stanley Kubrick oeuvre. I was so passionate about all of those movies. I felt like no one understood him the way that I understood him. I love Paul Thomas Anderson. He's probably in the top three of filmmakers that I wish I could be like. Um, and certainly in high school when I saw Punch Drunk Love, I couldn't get over it. Like, I would just walk around the halls of my high school, like listening to the soundtrack on my CD player and my little Discman, and I just wanted to like be in that movie forever. Um, so yeah, a lot of it is like either DVDs that I remember stocking on the shelf and kind of talking about all the time at the video store, or movies that like really actively changed my life or really shaped me personally.
That it's an incredible list of films, and as viewers jump into I Like Movies, I think the number of nods you see to various filmmakers and various films will be exciting because it certainly was for myself. And
It's very high
interest,
low. It's like Spartacus and Shrek, and
yeah,
like
yeah. The nod to Wild Things as like a
yeah.
90s phenomenon, and that becomes a running joke in the film. It's great. It's an outstanding little joke. And it's also worth noting on Canopy, Punch Drunk Love remains one of our most popular movies.
Oh wow.
It was one of the most popular films of 2024 on platform. So it just goes to show you the longevity of a film like that. And I think obviously you can see, whether it's, short clips or memes or what have you, various with, Philip Seymour Hoffman or Adam Sandler,
Yeah.
that film specifically has got, a long legs. It's had a long career and a long influence across viewership.
Well,
Uh,
that makes me very happy that it endures.
yeah, it's still, like I said, it's still one of our most popular. I mean, we're not shocked. Any PTA title that makes it on platform tends to do very well. So we're excited to get it. I'm going to take a bit of a more serious turn here for a moment because the film also addresses some incredibly serious subjects. While I Like Movies celebrates cinema, it also points out some of the darker sides of this industry, of which there are many instances across the history of film, from issues involving racial representations to sexual harassment and abuse that we now know about as a result of the Me Too movement. Uh, you even include, some elements of the film bro phenomenon and how toxic that environment can get, and we certainly see that on social media. Can you discuss the inclusion of such topics in I Like Movies?
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like there's a vibe shift in the movie. Like it starts out as super bad and then it becomes at some point like a serious drama. And oh no, maybe that's a spoiler, but I guess I wanted to kind of deepen it, and you sort of as you go along with Lawrence's arc, you start to realize that his really deep obsession with cinema is like really masking and hiding things that are like harder for him to even name or define. Um, and then with Elena's story, yeah, I think for me, it's just really important that he kind of has this better understanding of this thing that he really reveres. And obviously, we all love cinema, but on the backs of cinema is a lot of sometimes kind of insidious things and strange power dynamics and difficult experiences for like a lot of marginalized people that weren't always able to have the same kind of seat at the table. And I think even in when you look at film history and sort of the canon of what we think, certainly Lawrence like is obsessed with like a very classic film canon of what he thinks movies is. But as you look further, there's these people that have always been there and that have always been in the margins. These really incredible filmmakers that certainly have shaped my life, like people like Elaine May
Mhm.
um and so I think he's just not there yet, but it's important that he kind of has a bit of a rude awakening now before it's too late, I guess.
Yeah, that was definitely a film school moment for myself when you start to analyze and critique the history of cinema and realize that there's a lot of baggage, across the industry. And I'm sure I'm not alone in that discovery as you start with a passion for film as a kid and a teenager, and then, you slowly begin to learn more about, the history of the world, the history of the country, and then also the history of the industry. All right, couple questions left, and then we can wrap. A recurring theme within the story involves the question, "What is your favorite movie?" I'd be remiss if I didn't end this conversation by asking you the same question. So, Chandler, what is your favorite movie?
Oh, I think it's a tie between Almost Famous by Cameron Crowe and The Apartment by Billy Wilder.
Oh, uh, yeah, those are great, great, great options. I used to teach film, and my students inevitably would always ask me, "What is your favorite movie?" And I always made it a point every semester to change my answer. So
Oh, good.
I never gave the same answer twice. I mean, it was everything from, Easy Rider and The Wild One to The Graduate to Metropolis. I changed it up all the time just to essentially kind of challenge them to, especially, younger viewers to go see older films and black and white films. So thank you for choosing The Apartment, because that's often a challenge for younger viewers to see a black and white film or to see a silent film. Uh,
Yeah, which is such a shame. Because I mean, especially silent films, like you I love all those like Buster Keaton movies and just the incredible pathos and hilarity and how incredibly well bluffed they are and how insane he did his own stunts. Like you can learn so much from silent cinema. And like all
and
like Murnau and like all the greats, like everyone that you admire, especially like filmmakers like PTA, like they're watching those movies, they're getting
Absolutely.
inspired. Yeah.
And lastly, we'd love to know if you're a user of Kanopy, and if so, do you have any specific memories of liking a movie on our platform?
Okay, I can speak eloquently to this actually. Which is basically that like Canopy was a very good friend to me during the pandemic. And I felt like I watched a lot of movies on Canopy during the pandemic that I had very profound, viewing experiences with that were quite deep because I really needed movies at that time. I mean, I always need movies, but at that time especially like films were really speaking to me deeply and I had a lot of like very like I remember I watched Brief Encounter for the first time
Oh,
via
so
Canopy,
good. So
and that
good.
movie like me cut me like so deep. Like I couldn't believe how good Brief Encounter is by David Lean. Like it's exceptional. I remember where I watched this movie Summertime with like Katharine Hepburn
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
She goes on like it's kind of like an Italian neo-realist movie, and she goes on this like vacation to Italy by herself and falls in love, but it's like full of really like deep pain and pathos. I think I was in a mood of like just trying to watch like slightly haunting melancholy cinema. And I really Canopy really did me a solid on that front. And I think it's so nice to just it kind of does remind me of like the pleasure of like Blockbuster, where it feels like the only streaming service that actually is so like eclectic and it doesn't feel like Netflix where they're like ramming like the same six movies down your throat or something. Like
Yep.
you can be like, oh, okay, I am interested in watching like Seven Beauties by Lena Wharton Mueller or like or this movie that I totally missed at Sundance or an A24 film, but also like a great documentary. And I think it's one of those streaming services I think that also kind of like films are films are fuel and their food and stuff and sometimes I think you can get used to kind of like a junk food diet of cinema and it's really nice to have Canopy as an accessible tool to be like no I need to watch Panther Panchali or it's exciting that way.
And it's great to hear. We've heard so many similar stories, especially during the pandemic, where we had peak viewership, right? We had, captive viewership, and thankfully, with a catalog as deep as ours,
Mhm.
people were able to explore a lot more and not just get to your point, the top 10 lists on competitor platforms. So, very, very excited to hear, and your taste in cinema is outstanding.
Yeah. That's
The titles you rattled off for those viewing at home, definitely add those to your watch list because they are absolutely outstanding titles. Uh,
Well, it's also just, libraries are such an important tool. Like I think it's something that we take for granted, but certainly after this election, like anything's up in the air now, and it's like incredible to just with the library card, um, have access to so many like films for free. And I think if anybody's thinking about it, it's just like a remarkable tool that you have for free with the library card, and you can watch tons and tons and tons of great cinema and you don't have to pay like a subscription service. Like it's literally free. So why not take advantage of it? Why not watch like as many movies as you can and maybe challenge yourself to kind of watch things that are out of your comfort zone. Like I'm looking at the page right now and it's like you could watch Girl Walks Alone Home Alone at Night, which is fantastic. You could watch Aguirre, The Wrath of God. You could watch Punch Drunk Love. You could watch Charade. And I think by like going back to these like old classics, like it's kind of your job if you are a filmmaker to watch like old Hitchcock movies or um Harold and Maude, or
Yeah.
I don't know, Die Hard. Like you have to watch like all the great movies, and every time I watch a really great movie, I learn something, and it refines my voice as a filmmaker, and it makes me understand what my taste is, and I rip things off from movies all the time, so I encourage everyone to do the same.
Well, thank you for sharing that. We appreciate your time today. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Oh yeah, me too.
If
Well, I really like movies, so I like Canopy a lot.
Yeah, and we are incredibly excited to have I Like Movies on platform. It is available in the U.S. And Canada, so uh, check out through your participating libraries to see if you have access to Chandler's film and bask in the glory of I Like Movies.
I just don't understand why you won't apply to Canadian universities.
Because I don't want to be like a Canadian filmmaker.
What about Adam McGuane or David
Cronenberg. Oh my God. Burlington. Recognize.
What is this?
Okay, I just think that you should make films about things that matter to you.
Maybe if you didn't make the most embarrassing movie of all time.
I don't know if you know, but Lawrence applied to NYU. He's very talented.
Why don't you just tell me a little bit about yourself?
Movies are my entire life. 2 tickets to Paul Thomas Anderson's Punch Drunk Love, please. I got a job at sequels, man. It's the best thing that's ever happened to me.
How many copies of Shrek do you think you can sell? Donkey.
I thought I got hired here to talk about real cinema. So how long have you worked here for?
4 years?
Did you ever want to do anything else? Like, have a career?
I have a career.
I never really thought that I was good enough, but I've decided to bet on myself as an artist and a young man. After high school, I see myself having a really different life. What, so you're just not gonna want to be my friend? We should have like a staff picks wall. Section of the store that's all of our favorite movies. Wild Things has a 3-week late fee on it. I don't care that that's your favorite movie to jerk off to. My store really needs it back, okay?
Can you give in just once?
No!
If you play your cards right, I could see you having a career in the video store industry.
Don't you think I'm more capable than that?
Why are you being a dick? I can't believe my job is to make you feel good about yourself.
It is so depressing to know that I have to go through the rest of my life as like me.
I think you should go to a party.
No. I like movies.
Look me up on IMDb sometime.